Joining me on today's very hot topic, why has India failed to crack the Olympics code? Vikrant Gupta, our sports editor, Sneha Murdani, Preeti Chaudhary, Gaurav Sawant and Akshita Nandagopal. Now, another Olympics has come and gone. We're very, very proud of all of our sports people, especially the ones who've brought us 6 medals this time. Hopefully, it will be a 7th by tomorrow. The fact is, there are hard questions to ask, and that's the only thing that can make things really better. As sports fans in India, we are an emotional lot. We love to assign blame. We like to look for someone to blame for when things don't go our way, and things definitely aren't what they should have been, perhaps, in this Olympics. So why has India failed to crack the Olympic code? Is there only one person to blame or one entity to blame, or is it a much more complicated answer? Let's open it up here on the Democratic Newsroom. Vikrant, I'm going to kick it off with you. You've looked at sports longer than any of us here have. Is it one thing to blame, or are there many things? Who would you blame for India not cracking the Olympics code?
Shiv, the very fact that the topic of the debate is whether or not it's been a good Olympics, in spite of the fact that we won 6 medals, is testimony to the fact that as a sporting nation, maybe we are still waking up. If you were to talk to me in 2008, before the Olympics, that in the next 4 Olympics, India will win 24 medals, I would have taken that. Because I come from a generation where after 1980, the first Olympic medal that I saw was 1996. And 1 medal. So 1 medal would mean that the Olympics was a success story for us. We won 6. And I'm very happy that we're not mollycoddling the fact that there were a few 4th place finishes.
Yeah.
I don't think as a sporting nation, we should ever celebrate a 4th place. When India lost the World Cup final last year, the team wasn't praised. We were critical of the team.
Correct.
We said, why is it that you've not been able to win the World Cup? You've done well in terms of the numbers, reasonably well, because shooting gave you 3 medals. Other than that, I don't think this has been a good Olympics. If Vinesh is able to get the medal, which I have my doubts, it will be 7, at par with the best. But this Olympics, India should have finished with at least 2 gold medals, at least 10 medals. Anything short of that, we are not a sporting nation.
Who would you hold accountable if you had to point your finger at someone?
When you talk about cricket, you don't talk about the franchisees, do we? No. We talk about the BCCI. In India, the problem is you're spending money. It's not as if you're not spending money, but you're spending money on elite athletes. And who decides the elite athletes? Your sporting NGOs. You know, there are private entities who run your sports. It's not the Indian Olympic Association which decides, okay, person A is your elite sports. And why is it that you're only concentrating on the 8, 10 or 12 athletes? We are spending money on them. But are we raising the standard of sports in India? In cricket, just to give you an example, because my sons, they play age group tournaments. In under 16, every year, there are 450 kids who play the BCCI tournaments. In under 19, there are 450 kids. In under 23, there are 450 kids. And in Ranji Trophy, there could be 500. So you've got, even if there are duplications, about 1,200 athletes in cricket playing the age group tournaments within the BCCI. So you're just trying to elevate the standard of the game. Here, you're just trying to elevate the standard of a few athletes. Which means that if they don't do well...
So it's not a holistic approach, you're saying?
I mean, the federation has to run the show.
Okay.
And they've been pushed into the background.
Preeti, would you assign blame in one direction?
You know, very often, Shiv, we like to say that politicians should be kept out of sports. I actually feel, because the kind of setup that we have in this country, politics or politicians are essential to sports. Why do I say that? I'll give you an example, and I'll give you an example from the state that I come. I come from the state of Haryana. Now, Haryana, with 2% of India's population, gives in 35% of the medal overall.
66% this time.
66% this time, but overall, about 35% of the medals have come from Haryana, which is 2% of the population. One might say that, we are genetically blessed. That's not true. There's a reason you create a cradle of sportsmanship. You create a cradle of excellence. How do you do that? And I'll give you examples. Before the Sydney 2000 Olympics, in Haryana and across the country, the prize for a gold medal was 1 lakh. For a bronze medal was less than 20,000 rupees. Something changed in 2000. 2001, at that time, there was Om Prakash Chautala. He completely changed the game. For the first time in this country, a state introduced a sports policy, which was then further adopted by successive governments who came in Haryana. And I'll give you an example. Overnight, the prize money from 1 lakh for the gold shot up to 1 crore for the gold overnight. Now, this was a sports policy. For the first time, a state introduced a cohesive sports policy. Under the sports policy, the then government also introduced lots of, scholarships for kids, where you picked up these small kids from, villages where the akhadas were a regular way of life in Haryana. But you send out scouts to see that this is a bright girl, this is a bright boy, pull them up and started sponsoring them, right talent. And I'll give you an example. Then, how did you up the game? I have to say that when the Khattar government came in, the prize money from 1 crore, 2.5 crore was also pushed in by the Congress in between, but the Khattar government turned it to 5 crores which is huge for the gold, right?
So the incentive exploded.
And then there was a constitutional amendment in the Haryana Assembly in 2003, and I remember under the Huddas at that point of time, which made sure that if a person goes to a national, you will be, you have job security, right? And you'll get that kind of support.
Okay.
Haryana was the first, just give me 30 seconds, was the first state to introduce, you qualify for the Olympics. I don't care if you get a medal, we'll give you 15 lakhs. Now, look at it. I just want our viewers to shut their eyes other than an Abhinav Bindra. Abhinav Bindra, fabulous, we're proud of him, but he came from privilege, right? Now tell me how many of our sports persons can actually come when they are 13, 14, where they can tell their parents, I want to be a sports person, invest in me, and if I fail, then what? You've got to incentivize. It's great to blame the players today and say you have everything at your disposal, yet you're not firing and not performing. You are investing in players when they are already their top level. You're not hand-holding them through
so the question then rises.
You've got boxing, you've got wrestling.
Everything.
And the reason they do well is because it's the best place.
If the structure exists, if the
you
Haryana
created
model,
a nursery.
So if the Haryana model, so 1.66% of the land area in the country, which is Haryana, has yielded 66% of the medals.
2% of the population.
The number of medals is small overall, as Vikrant said. We shouldn't be happy with anything less than 10. But the fact is, if the Haryana model exists, and Akshita, if you want to come in since you started, then I'll go to Gaurav, is it then just difficult to blame anyone? Because even with the Haryana model in place, and Vikrant, I'll come to you after that, is that all of the states know this. This incentive model exists. Everyone knows it. It's public information. Sure. We've got the Olympic gold quest. We've got TOPS. We've got all these other national schemes as well. Then what happened? Who do you blame?
So I think that both Vikrant and Preeti have spoken about talent spotting and whatnot. I have a bit of an unpopular opinion on this, which is that, first of all, I was majorly disappointed by the number of medals that we brought back. So no, I wasn't satisfied with what we had because I thought we could do much better.
Yeah.
I also greatly agree with what Prakash Padukone said, which is that, the athletes also need to step up. And I don't necessarily blame each and every one of them. I blame the high-profile ones who Vikrant spoke of, who've got all of the resources, at their beck and call. And many of them didn't step up. I was very disappointed with Lakshya Sen finishing fourth because I felt that he choked at the last minute. Vikrant,
you were in the same finals. You could have won the same finals.
I know, exactly my point. So, I felt...
You think we're soft on athletes?
I feel that,
Because that's the message that Prakash Padukone was putting out.
You started off, Shiv, saying that we're very emotional about it. And I think that emotion comes in the way of us being critical when we need to be. We can't mollycoddle our athletes.
So criticism is interpreted as hate.
Where we expect them to perform, exactly. Where we expect them to perform, they must. We must have that room where we say that, look, you didn't do well. We should be able to critique them. We should be able to say that they didn't bring their A game to the Olympics. I mean, finishing fourth in so many sports is simply unacceptable to me. Because like we've said, it's a medal or nothing. So it means that you've essentially choked at the last moment.
I'll get to the issue of choking also in just a bit. But yeah, Gaurav, would you point your finger in one direction more than any other, or would you say that it's complicated, it needs a kind of holistic response?
So look at India's track record from the 1900s. I'm talking about pre-independence India. From 1900, where Norman Pritchard won a silver, again in France, in Paris. From his silver to Neeraj Chopra's silver in 2024. So in 124 years, we've only got 40 medals. And, you know, then we say, wow, we are Haryana, we are the cradle. We're very, very mediocre. We're very mediocre in our entire approach to the sport, to our entire approach to where we want to be. We lack that killer instinct. We are very happy, you know, what do we call our scheme? We call it tops. We call it podium finish. What does China call it? They say go for gold. They're not even aiming for silver. They're not aiming for bronze. They're not happy with silver. They're not happy with bronze. So, of course, they had more money. They put in more resources. And they put in more resources at a wider scale. If you just study China's example from 2008 onwards till now, from, you know, our own sports authority people tell us that from 200 academies, they've gone up to over 3,000 academies. They start talent spotting between the age of 3 years and 5 years, start nurturing them from 5 years onwards to 15 years. By the time they come to the sport, they're masters of the game at 16, 17, 18. So they have a much wider pool to choose from. There's deep selection that's happening and they're going for gold. We are so happy, wow, Olympic mein bronze will get. I mean, that's great.
I just feel, you know, that's the problem, that we celebrate mediocrity, which I feel is not okay.
No, because
we should celebrate.
No,
you know, when we get a medal, I think we go all out and celebrate, which is great. But we should also be critical. That's why I say
but it's a part of your own creation.
There has to be a nationwide approach.
All of us right here, tomorrow if Gaurav, your daughter doesn't want to pursue academics, and say 5 years ago, she would have said, I want to be a sports person.
If she's good at it, of course.
Maybe you, but like, are all of us ready for it?
I agree that a lot of people don't have the resources.
We are not focusing, we are not identifying talent. Listen, like all of these people barring, I mean, I just can think of Abhinav Bindra, all of these sports persons, even those who won bronze in the Olympics and otherwise as well, do not come from very well-off backgrounds. Okay, so the question here is, are we looking at the crux of the problem here, focusing on these people, talent spotting, nutrition
Sneha,
of all of these
your
people.
Own question.
Plus, I'll just come to you. Plus, this big question on whether, as a country, as parents, are we supporting, as a society, are we supporting sports persons?
Okay, you're saying
so
sporting
many
culture doesn't
examples.
exist.
Sporting culture is missing.
Quick reply.
Sports, Sneha, has always been a middle class.
Nurturing people, kids, like you said, when they're 3 and 4 and 5. I mean, how many parents are ready for that kind of an arrangement?
But Sneha, just a quick counter. You know, the answer lies in what you mentioned. The fact that you said, besides in Abhinav Bindra, you can't think of anyone else who comes from, you know, a family of, you know, having the adequate resources. Yes. Which means every single one of the sports persons right now have made it through. Which means that if they've got the talent, they've shown through. They've come up till this podium.
No, but listen, I'll quote Abhinav Bindra on this. You know, when I was reading his book, what does he end it on? That in India, you will win an Olympic gold despite of the system. So let's not, it's so nice to sit here.
It wasn't because of the system.
But he said it. I'm just
Even
quoting
Neeraj Chopra.
Yeah,
Even Neeraj Chopra.
I think everyone has
all
their
I'm just saying is
challenges.
that's what Abhinav Bindra said. When he himself said that you win
precisely
despite
what the
of
question
system.
on today's table is, which is that if the system is the enemy, he says in spite of the system you'll win a medal. If the system is the enemy, then why is it taking so long to actually fix? Are we too forgiving with ourselves? Is it about emotion? Is it about culture?
No,
is
I
it
think
about
the problem
corrupt
is,
federation?
the problem...
A specific question, Vikrant. Prakash Padukone's comment became a big flashpoint. You know, people piled onto him for saying that, you know, it's time that the athletes stepped up because it's no longer an era where they're not getting there. Is there anything to that? What do you think about what he said?
He was right. She just mentioned about mediocrity. You know, among the first interviews that I did in my professional career in 1997 was Viv Richards. So the great Viv Richards was in India. I interviewed him. I said, Viv, why is it that the West Indies cricket has gone down now from the earlier times? He said, the problem is we've started rewarding mediocrity. Once mediocrity becomes the benchmark, staying mediocre is also an achievement. You've done the same.
Yeah.
And
we've had huge, but is it wrong to celebrate bronze? Is that
no, it is not.
No.
It is wrong to celebrate fourth position. The moment you say Desh ki beti, Desh ka beta, Shan badai, that is wrong. And I'm not saying that everybody's going to win a medal. We are India after all. We're not the US or China. Let's be very realistic. But again, you know, if somebody who finishes at number 4 must also realize what he's missing out on.
Yeah.
And they must feel it.
No, but you know, when you
Because
say
they
we are
celebrate
India,
it.
when you say
Soak
we are
in the
India, we
victory
are not
and
China and we are not America. China and America followed a consistent policy. They followed a consistent policy over decades, and that's how they got there. So we need to do
We've done that
exactly.
in cricket.
And we've done that in cricket, and it's worked in cricket.
I'll tell you
It's
where else.
worked in cricket.
I'll tell you where else. It's great to look at the players and say that you've got everything going for you, yet you're not firing. You talk about the West Indies team, forget about everything. Look at our own hockey team. What did we do?
Yeah.
We had a hockey team which would go on the field and we would not know what would come of them. There was a cohesive policy by the Odisha state to adopt, hockey as a sport. And what Odisha did for hockey, possibly it's another model. We are looking at a Haryana model. You look at a state adopting a sport and doing wonders
So, Preeti,
with that
they
sport.
created a system for the hockey players, not just
Exactly.
for 10 or 11 players.
I
This
agree.
is the sport.
I
It's for the
agree.
game.
Vikrant,
Not for the
haven't times
sports
changed?
and don't pull down
Haven't
players.
times changed? From before to now, that resources are adequate.
Yeah.
That there's no lack of resources
And
like
there is-
before.
there is
When
a-
I used to hear these
I
terrible
don't agree with
stories.
that. What
Why?
nurtures a sports person is when that sports person is 9, 10. Resources are not adequate.
But it's starting
They
from
are
the
not
Preeti.
adequate.
That's
To
what
say
is
when
now
they've
the
already
young
reached.
generation.
It should
Talent
have
spotting
ideally.
is
To
happening.
say when they have already reached a level that you have the
No, it
resources,
should have
correct, they have
ideally.
it now.
I
But did you
100%
nurture the
agree.
talent earlier?
I
No, you didn't.
100%
Great to
agree.
blame the players, but
No,
I
it's
am
also
sorry.
because of
It's
the
not about
education
No, I
policy that you have.
100%
Everything.
agree.
she was
I
talking
it
about
should
the
start
kids.
early.
I mean,
But
look at the
do
way,
agree.
look at how China, trains the kids
No,
when they
I
are like
100%
in
agree
what,
that we
3,
should take
4,
lessons
5.
The
from
first
that.
Olympics
What
that
I
they took
wish,
seriously
I
was
wish
1984.
10 years
Till
ago.
then, they would not come to the
I
Olympics.
mean, my whole
They
thing is
want
it's
to
not
be
just so much
ready
about the
to go,
players
and then they
and
come to
the
the Olympics.
association. It's got more also to do with us, parents,
My
the society.
point is this.
The
My simple
education
point-
system, we are focused
Sitting-
on just studies,
Sitting in
academics.
metropolitan cities and to expect the
It's
kids
just-
to play and
I'm just
study
saying
as well
this,
is
that I
impossible.
agree with
I agree.
Preeti.
The reason people who come from humble backgrounds, middle class backgrounds, will always do well in sports because there's no pressure for them in smaller towns or villages to study.
Exactly.
You don't become a champion practicing 2 hours in a day.
100%.
You cannot. And again, if you want studies and
And
sports
Vikrant,
to,
that's all that they have.
yeah, I've seen that.
That's their only shot of
I'm
glory.
sorry, I
Preeti,
just-
I have seen that with my own sons. I would want them to do well in studies, yet play 9 hours a day.
Yeah,
Can't
then
be
it will never be.
It is impossible.
I'm sorry, but
Akshita.
all of this to
It is
me
impossible.
is changing. I agree with Preeti 100% that you should, start them off young. But unfortunate reality is that 10 years ago, nobody cared. Nobody cared to give them the funding. Nobody cared to give them
but
the resources.
Akshita,
You're doing it
hockey-
today.
You're
You've
not
started
doing it today. You're
You've
not
started
doing it
How
today.
are you saying it's not happening today, Preeti?
Because it's not. At a grassroots level, Akshita, it's not very few
Why?
states. That's
No,
the problem.
you tell me how it's not happening.
Again, you
It's
go to
not happening in
Haryana,
states.
you'll have boxers, you'll have wrestlers.
Let me give you an example.
give-
No, I'll give you an example. Okay, what is the center spending across states? Haryana gets the least. Yet, why does it do well? Because it has a cohesive sports state policy. Do you get that?
So
now,
there is a
other states
policy.
don't
And
have it.
also
Other
there is a
states don't
policy in
have it. No,
Haryana.
they
No,
don't
Preeti,
have
it's
it
also because
as
of the
robust.
legacy. It's
No,
also
of
because of
course.
the
I just-
legacy.
I
You
also
build
want-
on legacy.
I also
You
want to
build.
put in
And
a
that
thought
comes from the
because
army.
we talk about a country.
Neeraj. Shiv, we talk about Neeraj. When he won the gold last time, we thought this is going to be huge for Indian athletics. So other than Neeraj, tell me one athlete in track and field who's done well.
No, and also when we
Finishing
talk,
12th
And
in
you
a
see
final
that, you see that attitude.
is token participation.
No, and
That's
you
it.
see, you see
that
the
is where
attitude
you
of
need
Neeraj
fire in the
Chopra.
belly, and that is where
Exactly.
it's only the players who have fire in their belly
Because you see-
will do well.
I'll give you
Neeraj
a-
Chopra,
we
after
need
winning
great
silver,
driving.
Fire in the belly.
No,
We
Neeraj
have enough
Chopra,
players
after
to
winning
free.
silver, actually
Neeraj was a freak.
apologized.
He was an aberration.
No.
He was too good.
No,
So,
Neeraj
the system
Chopra,
never
after
created
winning
even
silver,
like an
actually
Abhinav
Yeah,
Bindra.
the
apologized.
system never created
even an
Neeraj. I
Abhinav
agree with
Bindra
that.
got 1 gold medal and that was it.
Shiv,
I'm just saying.
was 14 or 15 in Chandigarh.
Yeah.
He was in school. I think it was 9th or 10th standard. And he created some world record. I just joined the Indian Express at that time. And, we ran a story saying it's a world record. And then people said, no, it can't be a world record. He's just 14, 15. Let's go and reconfirm.
I remember that.
He went to Sydney.
Yeah.
He went to Sydney. He failed. He choked. He went to Athens in 2004. He failed. He choked. And then he won in 2008. Look at Manu Bakar, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there must be some hunger inside her.
Absolutely, that's the point I'm
Tokyo,
coming
she was
to.
crying.
Shiv.
No,
We're
that's
out of
why
time,
I say
guys.
that there must
It's
be...
that fire in their belly that our players need. The
But
moment
Gaurav,
they have their fire in their
again,
belly,
Gaurav,
the
tell me one
system
thing.
will kick in.
No.
And the system should kick in.
I
Guys,
agree
I'm
that
out of
you-
time. 30
I
seconds.
agree.
Wider talent
Why
pool
is
in
it
the
that you've
country,
got
there's
fire
no
in the belly
denying
when
it.
you come across 11 cricketers.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
criticize them.
Absolutely, that's the way
So
to
why
be.
can't you
We are-
replicate that
Fire in
system?
the belly doesn't take care of everything else. It doesn't
Exactly, I
take care,
agree.
doesn't feed your family at home. Fire in the belly is great for an aberration like a
No, but a
Neeraj.
medal
One
most
person-
definitely does.
One
A medal
person
most
who
definitely
definitely
does.
had
Not
fire
what
in
you
her
can
belly.
Go buy for sports in this country.
One
medal
person
most
who
definitely does
We're out of
ensure
time.
that
We're out of
everything is
guys,
taken
we're out
care
of
of.
time. I have to close right now. I'm sure we're going to do more of this in the week ahead because Olympics flavor hasn't evaporated yet. But a couple of thoughts just to leave all of our viewers with. One, if we're talking about fire in the belly, Vinesh Fogart definitely displayed it. She had it. And we're all hoping that there is a positive outcome to that court hearing. We're going to be waiting on that. We, of course, will report that. The second is, for a country with no resources, take a look at the Olympic ranking and see the countries that rank above India in medals. Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, so many countries, including Pakistan, that have a fraction of the resources that India actually has. It's only a thought. Remember, nothing is that simple. It's much more complicated than that. We always, always will be proud of all of our athletes and sports stars and wish them well and hope they bring us more medals next time. Thanks so much for watching. To the Point with Preeti is next.
Just came around to say hello. One, I'm so fly. You took a nosedive. Careful when you play on my level. For you it's so. Hey, hello.
Motorola Razr 50 Ultra. Flip the script.
Hello, Moto.
एक दोस्त है जिससे बात किए बिना हम रह नहीं सकते। बातें घंटों की हों या कुछ सेकंड्स की। ये दोस्त हमेशा हमारी बात सुनता है, क्योंकि हमारा सबसे अच्छा दोस्त भगवान ही तो है। मंगलदीप, दिल से करो बात भगवान के साथ।
In politics, everyone has an opinion, but I have the data. Whose stock is rising? Whose graph is falling? Track India's political stock exchange. Unmatched, unmissable data analytics. The only show on News TV when numbers do the talking. India's most credible poll tracker. The Political Stock Exchange with Rahul Kamal only on India Today.
हमको सबको पता है मेडल मिलेगा तो बहुत ही अच्छा रहेगा, एक मेडल नहीं मिलेगा तो एक वो हमको पता है कि जो सिचुएशन जो हुई अगर वो नहीं होती तो मेडल तो वैसे ही पक्का था। जब तक मेडल नहीं होता गले में वो एक चीज रह ही जाती है। लोग थोड़े दिन तक याद करते हैं, बोलेंगे कि यू आर आवर चैंपियन, हमारे लिए आप चैंपियन हो, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि जब तक वो मोमेंट ना हो, हम पोडियम पे ना हो, तो वो बहुत जल्दी भूल भी जाते हैं। तो मुझे ये डर है बस, अगर लोग नहीं भूलेंगे तो मेडल है नहीं है उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा। बस मैं लोगों से ये रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि जो विनेश ने किया है अपनी कंट्री के लिए उसको ना भूलें। बस
जो गवर्नर ने दिखाया है वो बहुत बड़ा बात है, क्योंकि इंस्पाइट ऑफ क्या कुछ हुआ उसके साथ जो पिछले साल में जो पुराने टाइम पे वो सब छोड़ के उसने स्पोर्ट्समैनशिप दिखाया, स्पिरिट दिखाया, फाइट बैक किया, हर एक ओड़ों के साथ उसने फाइट बैक किया और अभी फाइनल तक पहुंच गया। और एक शॉकिंग न्यूज़ था हमारे लिए सबके लिए, जैसे पूरा देश में जितना शॉकिंग हुआ हमारे लिए सबके लिए वही शॉकिंग न्यूज़ था कि अरे यार आप फाइनल में पहुंच के आप एक दिन आके बोल रहे कि नहीं आपको मेडल नहीं मिलने वाला और आप सबसे लास्ट में हो, तो बहुत मुश्किल है हमारे लिए वो चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट करना। बट स्टिल हम उसके साथ ही है और डेफिनेटली आज शाम को मैं भगवान से यही दुआ करता हूँ कि अरे यार एक पॉजिटिव रिजल्ट